Hello, everyone. This is Gary Wilson, and welcome to tonight's live go-to-webinar for the Investor Agent Training Program. Also, many of you have been through Flipping for Profits and the Rental Profits training programs. We do have Wholesaling for Profit. It is not published yet, although everybody is always welcome to the book that goes along with the program. It's free for you guys because you're students, so you can request that. Tonight's subject is we're going to talk about wholesaling, but we're not going to go into a lot of detail as far as me instructing you on how to wholesale. The reason is, again, remember, this is the third of a four-part series, all right? And the four-part series is how do you hold a classroom for your clients? And if you do it properly, it's going to take you 4 weeks to do it. In other words, it's a four-part series that you're teaching to your clients. And if you've never invested before in your life, it doesn't matter. You're not going to have invested before to be able to do this. In fact, I've mentioned her name before, but KW has an agent named Kelly O'Keefe. She's in Boston, Massachusetts. She's been doing this for about 10 years. She's never bought an investment property her entire life. And she does wholesaling on a regular basis with clients, and she also teaches a class to her clients. So she's a great inspiration for everybody who's new to the business or simply has never invested before. So have heart and basically be willing to take action and have a little confidence in yourself because you can do it too. All right. So in any case, a little bit of a review. Classroom number 1 was what we went over 2 weeks ago, is where you go over flipping, how you're going to help your clients understand the nuances of flipping and how to determine what is a good flip. Okay, that was session number 1. So if you're brand new and you're getting into this partway through, you'll have access to all of the recorded webinars, and you go on to the members section and get the webinar from 2 weeks ago. So I can't remember the exact date, but it's going to have in there the recording of that session that I put on for you, that webinar. Okay, and the second one, which was last week, was on rentals. You're going to hold a class for people who want to buy rentals, and you're going to give them basic instruction on how to determine what is a good rental and how do they do the analysis on that. Okay, that was last week's class. This week's class is on wholesaling. Now, a couple of points here. Many of you who know me, I'm not a big fan of wholesaling. I've actually done it a number of times. I did it for years, and I learned to kind of grow weary of it. And the reason is I was actively wholesaling myself, and I was a wholesaler. You're actually taking equity out of a transaction. Okay. Now, as a licensee, I don't feel comfortable doing that because I'm also collecting a commission from these transactions, and I didn't feel comfortable collecting a wholesale fee and a commission. Well, the good news is we have a great alternative for that. Okay, and I'm going to go into that a little bit tonight, so you understand more about how you play the role of agent in wholesaling transactions. Okay, so let's get into first things first here. All right, first things first. What is wholesaling? Many of you are new to the business, or even if you're a seasoned veteran agent, you're not familiar with wholesaling. And wholesaling is simply a matter of selling a contract. So I'm going to describe that to you here. Okay, so on your paper, draw 3 circles. All right, in a row, left to right. Okay, left circle, label it A. The circle in the middle, label it B. And the circle to the right, label it C. And what I'm telling you here is exactly what you're going to do for your students in your classroom. Okay, you're going to have them create or draw 3 circles and label them A, B, and C. All right, now here's the explanation of wholesaling. That some of you may be learning this for the first time, but regardless, this is what you're going to be giving to your students. All right, the A circle represents party A in a transaction. In this case, that's the seller, someone who's actually selling a property. All right. Party B is initially the person who makes the offer and gets the property owned by party A under contract. So now party B, for all intents and purposes, is the buyer who has the property under contract that's owned by party A. Now, here's where things get a little bit different. Party B does not intend to actually take ownership of the property. Party B intends to sell the contract. It's basically an assignment. He's going to sell or assign the contract to a third party who we'll call Party C. So now what happens is Party A still wants to sell the property. It's still under contract. The difference now is Party B is selling the contract to Party C. And Party C is going to pay Party B a wholesale fee or an assignment fee, okay, for the privilege of taking over the contract to purchase the property from Party A. So in essence, Party C eventually becomes the buyer and buys the property from Party A. Party B is cut out. They get a wholesale fee and they move on, okay? That's the basic nature of wholesaling. And you're going to instruct your students just exactly the way I just instructed you right there in the classroom, okay? That's A, B, and C. That's the easiest way to describe it. So Party B never takes control, never takes ownership of the property. That's the big difference. All right, now, who is wholesaling for? Wholesaling works great for in other words, people who represent Party B, the wholesalers. Those are people who don't have a lot of money, but they have time available to them, okay? They're able to go out there and find properties, get them under contract. And Party C is typically an investor who doesn't have a lot of time, but they have money and are willing to get the properties, to buy the contracts from the Party B, from the wholesalers. They're willing to pay a few $1,000s for the privilege of taking that contract over and eventually buying the property, okay? All right, that's kind of that's the what happens and the how it happens and the why it happens. You have a Party A who's a ready, willing seller. They want to sell their property. They only want a certain amount of money for it. Party B will have plenty of time, so they're able to go out there and find the deals and make them available to Party C, who doesn't have a lot of time, but they have the money and they're willing to pay for that privilege of not having to go out there and do a lot of analysis, and they'll simply take a good deal from a wholesaler who's Party B. All right, so we kind of described that to you. I know you said you have lines on your screen, but here's the basic flow. A with an arrow to B, original sales agreement. B with an arrow to C, which is the wholesale deal, and A to C, ultimately that's the transaction. A sells the property to C. That's the final analysis. That's exactly what happens in wholesaling, all right? Now, a couple of things here. When you're working with wholesalers, there's definitely ways you can make money and earn commissions working with wholesalers. And I'm going to get into that a little bit here later on, so you have a lot more insight into why it works and how it works with agency. Because a lot of agents are thinking, why would I get involved with a wholesaler? What if they sell the contract and I got cut out of the deal? Okay, and that's a valid concern. But I will give you a really big hint right here. If you did nothing else, here's what you want to do with wholesalers. If you agree to work with wholesalers, always get them under a buyer's agency agreement, number one. And you guys definitely want to write this down, okay? Get the wholesaler under a buyer's agency agreement. Tell them you don't work with them unless they do. In the buyer's agency agreement, you put in there, you can either put it in the buyer's agency agreement or in the individual sales contracts. You want to put some additional language. You can do it as an exhibit or an addendum that protects you, the agent. And what you say is, this contract survives the transfer to another party. So in the case of a wholesale deal, Party B is going to transfer the contract or assign it to Party C, All right, Party C now inherits the agreement that you have where you earn a commission. Okay, so that's the one way to protect yourself. You absolutely want to do it. We're going to elaborate on that a little bit more later on in this tonight's session. Okay, but back to the subject. Remember, you're instructing your clients how to wholesale properly, which leads me to the next thing. The next thing is this. You want to make sure you work with wholesalers who are doing it correctly and not just any old person who says they're wholesaling. That's why we like you have you teach this class, because the biggest mistake the wholesalers make is they go to try to find the properties first, get them under contract, and then they go find the buyers. And what happens is it's fraught with errors and fraught with trouble and problems, because they only have so many days to close on the property. So they've got to find, literally within a time frame that they put in the sales agreement, they got to find the buyer who's willing to take over the contract and still close within a certain period of time. And if they get the property under contract first and then try to find the buyers, you'll find a lot of those deals are going to fall through. The wholesaler can't find the buyer, they can't buy the property, and they let the deal drop, and you lose the commission. So here's the biggest thing you can do for your clients. All right, you want to instruct them that they need to find the buyers first. And here's what you're going to do to help them get started. You know how in the training program we have the booklet that we use to find buyers, and we have the letter that we use to find sellers? You want to give this to your clients, to your investors, your wholesalers in this case, and tell them, hey, you can use this booklet to find buyers, and you can use this letter to find sellers. So they're doing all the work. Now, there's a upside and a downside of that, okay? I want to get into that a little bit later, but for right now, you're basically teaching your students how to build their buyers list first. You always want to have them get the buyers first, get the demand built up. It's no different than you guys using the booklet to find your own buyers who are going to be your clients, okay? It's just in this case, your wholesalers are using the booklet to find the buyers and get them hungry to find a property. Okay, get the buyers first, and then the wholesaler goes out and finds the inventory, finds the listings, finds the properties to sell to the wholesalers, right? And they use the letter that we give you in the class to go out and find the sellers. So get the buyers first, and then you get the sellers. Now, they can certainly use that marketing. You guys are now familiar with the marketing. If you're brand new to the program, don't worry, you'll get the marketing in Module 4, and you'll learn it more thoroughly there. But the other thing too is important is you always want to have your wholesalers set up a website, and there's very inexpensive ways to set up websites. As a matter of fact, I believe that was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, our web developer Paul did a training program for you right here on the live webinar, weekly webinar, on setting up your own website. You can actually share that with your clients, okay, because it's out there, it's recorded, and it's housed on the database and cataloged by subject type, which was setting up websites. So you want to have your clients, your wholesalers, set up a website where they can showcase their properties, all right, and then they can use other programs like Postlets. They can use Craigslist. They can use a lot of other outlets to drive people to their website to see their wholesale deals, okay? So let me do a quick pulse here, a quick pulse check and see how you guys are doing. So hang on one second. Let me go back here, and let's see if we got any questions. Okay, let's see here. I really didn't want to show my webcam is on, and I'll tilt it up so you can see more of my face, but it's really not that important. It's more important that you hear my words and see the screen. So, okay. All right, so this is Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda. Rhonda's saying, are you saying have party B find party C first? Yes, that's exactly right, Rhonda. So your wholesalers are always going to find your buyers first, who's party C. All right, and once they have demand, in other words, they build up a corral of ready, willing, and able buyers, then they go and find the property to sell to the buyers, okay? Because then when they get the property under contract, they already have buyers ready to rock and roll, and they just submit it to their buyers, and the first come, first serve will buy the contract from the wholesaler from party B and eventually buy the property from party A. So you're absolutely right, Rhonda. Okay? All right, so what I want to do here is I want to step back into the marketing a little bit, all right, and what your wholesaler is going to be doing. They're going to be finding flip deals and rental deals, okay? And if you think about it, in Module 2 of your training program here, you already have the information that you need to help them find good rentals and find good flips. It's the same exact process here, so I'm not going to repeat it here. You're going to teach them in your classroom scenario, classroom number 1, how to do flipping, classroom number 2, how to do buy rentals, and now classroom 3, you're doing wholesaling. So they're already going to have the curriculum, okay, on how to determine what is a good flip and how to determine what is a good rental. So at this point, here's what we're going to have you do, though, in your classroom. Now, remember, this is you teaching a class. You get to this point in class, you should have a laptop there, all right, so you can actually look for properties. You can look for them on your MLS, but more importantly, you want to look for them by using like your county's tax assessment database, okay? And you're going to be instructing your clients, okay? And don't be afraid to share information. I mean, I can tell you, I know it's a leap of faith, but I promise you, the more informed your clients are, the better they are as clients, okay? But what I'm getting at is you're actually going to identify properties, okay? You're going to have your clients use the technology to identify what they believe would be a good rental, what they believe would be a good flip, and you're going to find multiple properties. And there's a real good reason why you're doing that here, not just to give them instruction and to get them engaged and learning how to do this, but you're going to use those properties in the fourth part of this four-part series, the fourth part of this classroom scenario, okay? Just remember, you're actually going to go through the exercise in class of identifying properties. You're going to teach them how to do that, all right? Okay, so is everybody okay so far? I want to check and see if we have any questions, because wholesaling is a little bit different than what we're used to as licensees, and I'm going to show you how you can enhance your role in this whole transaction where you get paid multiple times, all right? So just hang on to your seats. If you're concerned right now, don't worry. Your concern is going to be greatly alleviated here in about 15 minutes, all right? And by the way, tonight's class is not going to be nearly as long as the others. It's just because of the nature of the subject here, so don't worry about that. In any case, so far, you've gone over with your clients what wholesaling actually is. You understand how it works. And now you understand why it works, because you have ready, willing, and able sellers. You have ready, willing, and able buyers. And your wholesaler is going to be bringing the two together with you collecting fees and commissions through the whole transaction, which we'll get into in a little bit later. So matter of fact, let's go ahead and talk about it now. You guys are probably curious about, Gary, what the heck do you mean? And how can I make money doing this as a licensee? All right, now this part is not what you're going to be teaching your clients. What I'm teaching you right now is how you play your role and how you profit from it, okay? So I'll try to slow down so that you actually grasp it and take notes, so you'll see exactly how you play the role you play and profit from it in multiple ways. You can actually earn 4 or 5 commissions sometimes on an individual wholesale transaction. All right, so get your paper ready and your pen or pencil ready, okay? All right, first thing is this. When you work with a wholesaler, I tell the wholesaler that the only way I'm going to work with them is that they work with me on my terms, which is they sign a buyer's agency agreement, all right, where I'm guaranteed representation, number one. And number two is, on every sales agreement, we have that language in there that basically takes your role as the agent, and it gets assigned to any new person. So if they assign a contract, you're representing this wholesaler as a buyer, they assign the contract, your agency role transfers or gets assigned with the contract to the ultimate buyer. So you're guaranteed to represent that buyer and earn a commission, okay? But in any case, I always charge a wholesaler a flat fee for working with them. And I charge it per transaction, or you can charge them a fee to basically work with you, and every year they can update it, they can renew it by they paying you a new fee. All right, so number one is you're not earning a commission from the wholesaler, you're earning a fee. You can't call it a referral, you can't call it a commission, all you can call it is a marketing fee. So write that down, marketing fee. And depending on where you are in the country, or in US or Canada, depending on your marketplace, you can charge $1,000, you can charge $5,000. It has to be commensurate with the size of the transactions in your marketplace. All right. So I generally would want about a 1% fee. You can't call it a percentage though. You just got to have it charge a flat fee. So if you're dealing in a marketplace where the average transaction size is $100,000, charge $1,000. If we're in a marketplace where the average transaction size is $500,000, charge $5,000. Okay. The bottom line is the wholesaler is going to make plenty of money anyways. And if they want to work with you and do it correctly, they'll pay this. All right, so that's profit center one for you. Profit center 2 is you can actually go out there and find the properties for your wholesaler to wholesale. You don't have to rely on your wholesalers to do this. You can do it for them. And then what you do is the seller, party A, you get them under contract, okay, and you charge of course, a listing fee to them. And when you sell the property, when you get it under contract with the wholesaler, who eventually sells the contract, you're going to get paid a listing fee because you eventually, essentially sold the property. So you can get a commission from the person who's selling the property, party A. You've already got a fee from party B, your wholesaler, and guess what else you can do? That's right. You can find the buyer for the wholesale deal. Okay, you don't have to rely on your clients to do all this. You can do it for them, and now you get a buyer's agency commission from the buyer who's going to ultimately buy the property from party A. They bought the contract again from party B, ultimately buy the property from party A, and you collect so far a listing fee, a listing commission, a buyer's commission because the buyer bought it, party C, and a wholesale fee, marketing fee from the wholesaler. Now here's where it gets even better. All right. So let's say the property, this whole thing is based on a flip. All right. The person selling is in distress. The property's a wreck. It needs to be remodeled. They sell it. You collect a commission from them. The wholesaler gets it under contract. You collect a fee from them. That's payment number 2. You find the investor who's going to buy the property from the buy the contract from the wholesaler, ultimately buying the property from party A. So party C is your buyer. You collected a buyer's commission from them. Then when they remodel it and sell it and list it, okay, now it's remodeled. Now it's a flip because it's remodeled. You list it for them, so you get another listing fee, okay? And if you're really good with your marketing, you'll find the ultimate buyer, the owner-occupant who's going to ultimately live in the property and get and by the way, 30% of the time, get the buyer and you get a commission there. So you just got paid 5 times on this wholesale deal. Let's walk through it, okay? And you can draw this out. Step number 1, you find party A who has a property to sell that's probably distressed, and this is the example of a flip, okay? You get a commission there. Step number 2, you already work with the wholesaler. You don't collect the commission from him, but you do collect a wholesale fee, a portion of. You have to charge a flat fee. You can't charge a percentage, but he's going to pay you out of his wholesale fee. You're going to get a fee yourself. That's payment number 2. You ultimately find the investor, okay, who's going to buy the wholesale deal and who's going to remodel it, okay? You get a buyer's commission there. That same person, once the property is remodeled, is going to relist it, okay? But you already remember you got your 3 payments so far. You list it for them, and you sell the property again. Once it's remodeled, you get another listing fee there. That's payment number 4. And if you're really good and the Lord shines his light on you, you get the ultimate buyer who's going to live in the house. That's payment number 5, the buyer's commission there. 5 ways you as an agent can make money on wholesaling legally, ethically, and you never wholesale yourself. Okay? So I want to make sure you guys are clear with that. Let me take a quick pause here and let me look for some questions. I want to make sure everybody fully grasped what I just went over. And remember, what I just went over, you don't teach that in your classroom. This is just between you and me and your wholesaler client who knows exactly what you're doing. But you're earning commissions in multiple ways, and you're earning a fee from this wholesaler for the privilege of working with you, okay? Now that's a great example of how you can profit multiple ways from a wholesaler. Now, back to the beginning part of class. Remember, you're teaching these guys the components, the mechanics of a wholesale transaction. You're teaching your wholesalers this in the class. And you're going to teach them that they probably can and should market themselves to find the properties, get them under contract through you as the agent, by the way. So no matter what, you still collect the commission from doing that. All right. Also, they find the buyer. If they find the buyer, in themselves, then there's no commission on that end. But at least you've got a marketing fee from your wholesaler, and you can also collect maybe a transaction licensing fee on both ends. So in any case, that's the initial thrust of this third class in this 3-class series, is teaching your wholesalers how to do that. What I'm telling you is that a lot of wholesalers, they'll get busy and they don't want to spend a lot of time finding properties and finding buyers. They'll rely on you, and that's what I'm saying. You can work with the wholesaler and collect commissions in a traditional sense and a fee from the wholesaler. Get paid multiple ways. So you have 2 ways to skin that cat. That's what I'm ultimately getting at here. Again, way number 1 is your wholesaler finds the properties and finds the buyers. Method 2 is you find the sellers and you find the buyers for the wholesaler. Either way you slice it, you're going to make money. All right, but back to the theme of this session tonight, which is putting on the 3rd class for your students and teaching them how to wholesale. You're not going to be the expert, but you're going to know enough to be able to do that. Just follow along here, okay? So the next thing you want to show them is this. You want to show them how to properly structure their business entity, okay? Which is going to lead me to the final piece, which is 3. Basically, I got 3 more sections to cover here. What I'm going to cover now is going to kind of feed me in how I go over the final piece for tonight's class. So go ahead and look at your notes, look at your drawings, and I'd be surprised if I didn't have any questions, because this is not a straightforward kind of scenario. Although the way we describe it, we think we broke it down into simple enough terms that you understand the basic concept. So think about the last part that I just told you, though. How do you actually collect 5 payments from one wholesale deal, and see if you've got it figured out. If you don't have it figured out, please let me know, because this is the time to cover it. And I'll give you a second to look at your notes, okay? Okay. All right, you guys ready for the next part? Okay, good. The next part is the actual business structure itself. So, all right, whether you're wholesaling yourself or your clients are wholesaling, what we highly encourage you to do is to wholesale through an LLC. You do not want to wholesale directly. In other words, you don't want to be taking control of properties or transactions or taking ownership of properties, okay? I know a lot of people do that, and they're putting themselves at risk, all right? And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail here. So what we instruct you to do is to instruct your clients in your class to set up an LLC for the purpose of wholesaling. And what they're going to do is this: set up a simple single-member LLC. Now, if they're in a partnership with other people, yes, you've got to set up a different type of, basically an LLC, but it just looks like a partnership, okay? And that's not a single-member LLC. There's usually 2 equal partners, or there's a general partner and multiple limited partners. Don't worry about that right now. Right now, the point is you want to have your clients set up an LLC, okay? And so instead of the individual person, Jane Doe, getting a property under contract in her own name, she's going to put the property under contract in the name of the LLC. So in other words, Jane's LLC is purchasing the property from Property A. So Jane's LLC is now Party B. Okay, Party B, the wholesaler, is actually now an LLC. And the LLC gets the property owned by Party A under contract. Then when they've presented to their buyers, who they already have, they present the contract, the deal, basically the sales agreement and everything about that property, present it to the potential buyers, and the person who's on the contract now is not going to say Jane Doe. It's going to say Jane's LLC and or assigns. And that's the language you have to have in your contract, by the way, on a wholesale transaction or an assignment, is right after the buyer's name, you put the words and/or assigns. And that gives that buyer the opportunity or the legal right to sell the contract, to assign the contract to another party. Okay. So the bottom line is you want to set up an LLC. All right. Now, that leads me to the next thing here, and we're going to get back to this when it comes to your role in this. Again, we're going to wrap it up at the end, but before I do that, I want to go into a little more detail here. All right. Essentially, what you're doing is you're selling the contract. So your wholesalers essentially need to be thinking, feeling, acting, speaking like a business. They need to present their wholesale deals in a favorable light. So what that means is your wholesalers are not going to become marketers, and you can help them by showing them some marketing techniques. All right. So a couple things you want to remember here is when your wholesaler is presenting their deal to potential buyers, they need to provide a booklet, almost like a portfolio, if you will. And in the portfolio, that booklet, it needs to provide pictures of the property, okay, pictures of the neighborhood, and pictures of significant characteristics about the local area, like the town or borough or township, whatever the case is, municipality. How close are they to shopping centers? How close are they to schools? How close are they to colleges or universities? How close are they to hospital systems? Okay. So the bottom line is you want to have your wholesalers present their deal in a favorable light, in a way that's professional and eye-catching, in a way that's going to attract the ultimate whoever's going to buy the wholesale deal, right? So you want to include pictures, descriptions of the area, maybe some local, you can print some information off your planning commission website, put that in there, but also a pro forma that describes to potential buyers why this is such a good deal and why they would pay this wholesaler a wholesale fee to take over the contract. There, the big thing is this. If you think back to, I know Bill Cosby is not a big favorite person of anybody's right now, but he had a pretty good saying going back to the old days. And he said, if you present me a steak dinner on a trash can lid, I'm not going to like it. It could be the best steak in the world, but I don't want to touch it if it's on a trash can lid. However, if you give me that steak dinner on a silver platter with fine china, I'm going to like that steak an awful lot. Okay. The point is presentation is everything. So if your wholesalers want to be successful, they get their buyers first, then they find the properties, get them under contract, then they want to assign the contract to the party C, the ultimate buyer. They got to put on a pretty good show, right? And we think the best way to do that is putting together a little package, a little portfolio. Now, they don't have to just send these things out. They can, but what they can do is put them out there on Craigslist. Okay, do like postlets, do all kinds of stuff. They can put them on their website. They can do a YouTube video, all right, and send them off to their buyers. Send the YouTube video with an attachment that has the pro forma and all the pictures, but they can walk through the property, describe the property as they're walking through it, and they're filming the whole time. So you create your YouTube video, and then you include a pro forma, which is basically like an Excel spreadsheet, okay? And that's how they can present it to their buyers. There's a number of ways they can present it to their buyers, all right? The point is it has to be done in a way that's going to get people's attention, because if they can't sell that wholesale deal, your commission's going to be cut short, all right? So in any case, presentation is everything. Now what I want to do, guys, is take another quick pause here, because the final segment of tonight's class, I'm going to get into a little bit about what you need to know if you're wholesaling yourself. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I want to give you enough to think about, because this comes up all the time. As a matter of fact, it just came up on Monday. I was in Pensacola, and there was a student in the program there. He's an investor, and I'm not going to mention any names, of course, but he brought this subject up. He said, how do I get involved with wholesaling even though I'm a licensee? And that's what I'm going to cover next. But I want to give you guys a chance to enter questions before I go forward. So let me take a quick pause here. Hang on one second. Okay. So are you guys ready? Because what I'm going to give you next is some critical information related to you as a licensee relative to wholesaling. And you have to know this, you have to write it down, and you have to abide by it, because if you don't, you're putting yourself at risk and potentially your office at risk, okay? A lot of agents, we're discovering we're doing this incorrectly, and it puts them at risk, all right? Okay, here we go. All right, we're going to assume you're a licensee, because if you're on this webinar, you probably hold a realtor's license, all right? Now, let's say you are a licensee, you do want to earn commissions, but you also want to participate in wholesaling directly. In other words, you want to wholesale and earn much bigger paydays. A lot of brokers don't like us doing this. In fact, some ownership groups will tell you they don't allow it in their office. I'm personally not a big fan of it. I teach it because I'm required to, and we teach it properly. And I used to do this, by the way. I know that it works, right? So here's step number one. Number one is this. You absolutely need to set up an LLC to separate you from direct ownership of a property or control of a contract. Okay, so let me go through this so that it makes sense to you, and I want to give you time to ask questions. All right. In the eyes of your local board, in the eyes of your state or province, wherever you are in U.S. and Canada, the judicial system, all right, the court system, is always going to view you as being more sophisticated than the consumer, simply because you have a license. They view you as being more sophisticated. So let's say you do a wholesale deal directly yourself. You, the agent, Jane Doe, get a property under contract in your name. Even if you disclose it, it doesn't matter. Disclosure is a formality. It doesn't actually buy you anything. It doesn't buy you protection. It just means you follow foreclosure law, all right? Disclosure law. So you get a property under contract from party A. You're now the wholesaler, you're party B, and you find the buyer. And the buyer buys the contract from you, and you collect the wholesale fee. All the while, you're a licensee, all right? Even if you disclose that you're a licensee, it doesn't mean you're out of the woods. I mean, you did the right thing by disclosing you're a licensee. You have to do that. But what will happen, let's say the party A 6 months later decides, you know what, they're not happy with how things turned out, and they think what you did was wrong, and they decide to file a complaint against you. And more importantly, they maybe find a lawyer who encourages them to file a lawsuit against you. As soon as you go up in front of a judge and the judge finds out you're a licensee, you automatically will lose. Matter of fact, I'll bet my next commission on that will happen every single time. The reason is the judge is going to look at you and say, why did you collect the wholesale fee? I know you were acting on your own behalf, not as a licensee, but the fact is you are a licensee, and that's the critical point here. It doesn't matter if you acted on your own or not. The fact is you have a license. Even if you act on your own, you still have a license, and you're held to a higher standard, okay? So that's why you set up an LLC. Now, it goes deeper than that, guys, all right? So let's say you set up the LLC. You own the LLC. The LLC is now acting as party B, the wholesaler, gets the property from party A under contract, okay? Your LLC now has a contract that controls the contract. The LLC sells the contract to party C, who's ultimately going to take the contract over and buy the property from party A. All right? At least in this case, you separated yourself from direct control of the contract. All right? So far, so good. You've done a good thing. You've protected yourself. All right? But not enough. And here's the final point in all this. All right, if you're wholesaling and you're a licensee, even if you're just acting as an individual investor, it doesn't matter. You've got a license, and you set up an LLC. Where most people still make the mistake is they're filling out all the sales agreements directly themselves, even though they're saying Jane Doe, member LLC. Jane Doe still filled out the contract, and Jane Doe still signed the contract. All right. So here's what we tell you to do. You want to find somebody in your office who will act as a transaction licensee. Just pay them $250, $300 to act as the transaction licensee and execute the documents on your behalf. Now you're not acting as a licensee. Now you're acting as only a consumer, okay? and your transaction licensee is acting as the licensee. All right. Now that transaction falls under the protection of errors and omissions insurance. All right. Remember, you're not acting as the agent. Somebody else is. You're not acting directly as the party B. Your LLC is, and that's how you separate yourself. All right. Directly, you separate yourself from having direct involvement with either the transaction or the contract or the property. There's one more step we recommend you take. All right. All right. So you're Jane Doe, you're a licensee, you set up your LLC. Your LLC is now going to be the wholesaler. What we actually recommend is one more form of protection. This is the final effort you can make to protect yourself and protect your broker. What you want to do is have a partner in the LLC, okay? And the partner in the LLC is going to be, you're going to give them the authority to sign documents. Now, you're still the 100% owner. You own the LLC. It's outright, you own it. All right. So the party member is simply plays a certain role, and it's almost like they have authority to sign documents. They have authority to do a couple of things, but they're not an owner of the LLC. So what happens is, you can make them I wouldn't call them officer, but you can make them a secretary of the LLC. And as a secretary of the LLC, they can sign for the LLC. So let's say your secretary's name is John Doe. John Doe would sign on behalf of the LLC. And John Doe would say, John Doe, acting as secretary for Jane Doe's LLC. When you take that final measure, guys, that's how you're protecting yourself. Now, I know some of you are going to be asking the question here, should they be a licensee or non-licensee, this secretary? I recommend that they not be a licensee, all right? So what happens is now your transaction licensee is acting as the licensee. Now they're protected by the errors and omissions insurance, and the transaction looks like a traditional transaction. The wholesaler is using their LLC. They at no time sign anything directly, either the contracts or anything else for that matter. The LLC is taking control of the contract. And then the secretary is the person who's actually signing on behalf of the LLC, yet the secretary has no ownership in the LLC. So they really have nothing at stake there. They're just simply like an employee, all right? All right, now that was a handful. And I'm not an attorney, and most of you guys are not attorneys too. So I want to give you a moment to absorb that, and let me check for questions here, because I want to make sure everybody fully grasps that. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it's really not a lot, guys. Number one is you should be setting up an LLC regardless, and so should your clients. Okay. Okay. So this is Mara. Mara says, "Do you have an example of making these numbers work?" I can get you an example, Mara, because I've done a number of them. I can dig through my my old files and find some that I've done, but we can walk through an example right here. So let me go ahead and get out your. Now, unfortunately, the way this GoToWebinar works is I can't actually draw anything and have you guys see me drawing on the board, so to speak. So I'm going to walk you through it and have you draw it out yourself. All right. Okay. So this is example number one. Let's say party A has a property, 123 Main Street, and they want to sell it. And all they want is $100,000. That's all they want. Okay. So we'll take the latter example of the agent who wants to wholesale. Now, agent Jane Doe comes along, all right, and she set up her LLC, who's actually going to get the property under contract. The LLC, remember, is just like another person. The LLC is a separate entity. So Jane Doe's LLC makes an offer to party A to get the property under contract. So right now, Jane's LLC is acting as party B. So party B gets the property under contract from party A for $100,000. Now Jane's pretty savvy. She's not only an agent, she's an investor. She knows that property, even though it's in wholesale condition, in other words, it needs to be remodeled, should fetch $120,000, to any decent investor. So she gets it under contract for $100,000. She has her secretary sign the sales agreement. She has her transaction licensee from the office actually execute the documents. And then she sets about presenting it to her buyers who are party C. All right, now there might be multiple party C's. So you just got to get one of them interested in the property. So she sells the property. She sells the contract. Her LLC, Jane Doe's LLC, sells the contract to party C, and party C takes the contract over for $20,000. So now party C pays the LLC a $20,000 wholesale fee. All right, and party C ends up buying the property from party A. So Jane Doe, the licensee, just collected a wholesale fee for $20,000 in the name of her LLC. She didn't sign anything. She didn't touch anything, but she collected a $20,000 fee. All right. Now, if you're really savvy, all right, you can get the property that is owned by party A, get it under a listing agreement, listing contract, where you also collect a commission, okay, from the seller. You collect 3%, 6%, what have you, all right? Let's just say it's 3%. Because you can also use your license to find the buyer. In other words, this is Jane Doe, the agent, right? She now gets the buyer, one of her buyers, and gets them under contract, a buyer's agency agreement, to earn 3% there. So not only is Jane Doe earning a wholesale fee, she's also earning commissions on the front and the back end, all right? And if she's really good, the property that she's selling, this buyer now is an investor who's going to remodel it. She agrees with that person to get it under contract again when they're ready to sell it themselves, because it's going to be remodeled and they sell it. They collect the commission there, another 3%. And again, if it's a beautiful, wonderful, shiny, sunshiny day, she will find the end user buyer and collect another buyer's fee there. So she could collect 2 listing sides, 2 selling sides, and 1 wholesale fee, all right, acting as the wholesaler. So in any case, that's one example of how these things can work from start to finish. The bare bones version is just simply wholesaling, collecting a wholesale fee. But remember, if Jane Doe separated herself from the property by using an LLC, separated herself from the contract work by using a transaction licensee to execute the contracts, and a secretary for the LLC to sign on behalf of the LLC, she's now free to act as a licensee to represent all these different parties and earn commissions in addition to the wholesale fee. Now, that's how you do it the proper way and separate yourself from everything. Now, if I was wholesaling, I would not be collecting commissions myself. That's my personal opinion. I would not do both, no matter what. I've done that in the past. I just won't do it anymore. Which leads me to one final piece, okay? But let me check for questions here real quick before I give you one final piece. This is Melanie, can partner be licensed agent? So I think that was back to what I mentioned earlier, Melanie, that yes, they can. I would recommend that they not be, okay? Samara says, I mean more, what is an investor looking to make in a situation like this? Okay, so Mara, the investor buys the contract from Jane Doe, from the Jane Doe's LLC. They give a $20,000 wholesale fee to get the contract so they can buy the property for $100,000 from party A. Now that investor typically is going to be looking for a 30% return. In other words, when they're done remodeling, their total cost base is going to be $100,000 for the property, $20,000 for the wholesale fee, and potentially $30,000 a rehab. Now they're up to $150,000. So most investors are going to be looking to sell that thing for about $200,000, okay, to basically profit on that property. That's the basic number. So, Mara, if you look in your training material, Module 2, we go into that in great detail, what margins should look like, and generally it's 30%, 20% for profit, 10% for overhead. Okay, let me see if there's another question. Ron says, I would just take the home at $97,000, no commission. That's a good point. Yep. Oh, hey, Ron, how you doing, buddy? Ron's a brand new guy from Pensacola. Welcome aboard, Ron. By the way, Ron, I'm going to give you one more example of what to do here as a licensee. that'll help you actually do what you just described there, but actually make more money doing it. Okay. All right. So Rhonda says, if party A wants to sell for 100,000 and I know it's worth 120, aren't I obligated to tell him or her that? If you're directly acting as a licensee, Rhonda, the answer is yes. But remember, the example I just gave is if you're a licensee and you're going to participate in the wholesale, you don't directly touch it in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so in that case, the answer is no. If you do get involved directly, the answer is yes. Okay. Now remember, most wholesalers are not licensees. You know, they're just they're investors. But your question and Ron's statement actually leads me to the next thing. Okay, which is this. Let's see, we got another question. It was wholesaling for flips or rentals. Actually, you can do it for both. Okay. Okay, here's the final thing, guys. All right. It doesn't work in every state because not every state allows this, but there is a process called net listing. You can do it in states like Florida and Pennsylvania. But you can't do it in Virginia, for example. You can't do it in California. You just have to check with your own, and it's not the kind of thing you ask your team leader or your broker, because a lot of times they don't know. They just assume the answer is no. But if you call your state's board of realtors, there's always a hotline you can call. Ask them what their opinion is of net listing in their state. And here's how net listing works. It's essentially a wholesale, but here's where the difference is. Okay, let's say you're a licensed. Let's say you're Ron Gage and you're in Pensacola, Florida. All right, you recognize a good deal. Property that the party A only wants $100,000, okay, and you know that you can sell it for 120. What you do is you approach the consumer, and by the way, this is one that you don't want to buy it yourself, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this. So you go to the seller, party A, and you say, look, I know you only want $100,000. You know, I think I can get more than that, and I'm willing to take some risk. And this is the exact language you want to use. I'm willing to risk my entire commission under one condition. I'll make my commission equivalent to any profit over and above $100,000. So you, the seller, get $100,000 no matter what. If I don't sell it for $100,000, I don't get a commission. So if I sell it for $97,000, I don't get paid at all. All right. What I'm willing to do is I'm willing to take that assignment with the risk because I'm confident I'll be able to sell it for more than $100,000. Any dollar over and above $100,000, I keep him as my commission. Are you okay with that? And believe it or not, you'll get a lot of people say, I don't care. I just want to sell the darn thing. I want my $100,000. Get out of here. You can, whatever you can get for it, more power to you. And you get them to sign that. You have a listing agreement that's documented with the wording that describes that your commission is equal to any profit over and above $100,000. It's called a net listing. So if you do sell it for $120,000, your commission ends up being $20,000. It's not a wholesale fee; it's actually a commission. Okay, your seller, the party A, gets $100,000, and you get a $20,000 commission. And some other person, party C, actually buys the property from party A, the ultimate buyer. That's called a net listing. Check with your state or province, see if they'll allow it. If they will, the big benefit to doing a net listing is this. You get to collect a much bigger commission. It's like a wholesale fee, but it's now legally a commission. And you and the transaction are all covered under errors and omissions insurance. That's a huge difference. See, wholesaling falls outside of basic normal agency. And if you do the way we described it earlier, you're not covered with E&O insurance. The wholesale deal is not covered, and neither of any of the parties. However, if you bring it under the brokerage umbrella, now everything is covered under errors and omissions insurance, which is a wonderful thing. Okay, so that's the final thing I want to tell you guys. Let me check one more time for questions, and we're going to call it a day. That went a little bit longer than I thought, but there's a lot of details here. Next week, I'm going to wrap up this 4-part series. Part 4's number is next week. We're going to talk to you about how do you actually pull this whole thing together, and what do you do next? Once you got these people in your classroom, flippers, landlords, wholesalers, what do you do next, and how do you profit? That's what we're going to talk about next week. Okay? So, any case, appreciate you guys being on here tonight. I hope you got a lot of it. You're definitely going to need to replay this because there was a lot in this, all right, guys? And I understand that. So definitely replay it, get the recording, and keep it forever. And I'll see you guys next week. I believe that's going to be, I'm not sure when it's going to be next week. Hang on one second. Okay, today is next week is going to be Wednesday night, next week. Yep, next Wednesday night. So we'll see you next week. In the meantime, God bless you all. Please let me know when you want your one-on-one. And if you have questions, by all means, email me. Okay, God bless you and have a great night. Bye-bye.